Hi, Katie. This is Wendy Barsax. I am here to talk to you about Chapter 3 and the rationale behind what Morris has to say about assessing word recognition and isolation, contextual reading, and spelling. The dual purpose of reading diagnosis is to establish a student's reading instructional level and to identify relative strengths and weaknesses in a student's reading behavior. In the first part, when he discusses assessing word recognition isolation, it should be automatic, accurate recognition of printed words that drives the reading process. Word recognition skill is developed in nature, evolving across grade levels to provide the foundation for reading progress. Reading isolated words in a list provides a pure context-free measure of word recognition versus just having a child read a passage. Word recognition is usually, sorry, I'm looking over at my notes, assessed by having a child's grade level list of words. There's some controversy, and Morris talks about this in his book. At the beginning, Betts suggested that you should test a child timed and untimed, and it should be a flash test with about a half a second. And if they didn't get it, then you moved on and showed them untimed. That was the techoscopic technique. I believe that's how you say that. But in the last couple years, or 20 plus years, that method hasn't been used as much. There is still a flash untimed presentation, just not quite like Betts had. The word recognition contains 20 word lists ranging from the early first grade to 8th grade. I thought it was unique in this that you always start with a pre-primer list, which would be early first grade, even if you're testing a child that's in 5th grade. And he says in this, it's because it's not a waste of time. It is an opportunity for us as teachers, to get them used to the practice of the actual technique of the word recognition. But he does stress before we use the flash technique with our students to practice it. And he provides that website in the book as well. And this is something we do at my school at the beginning of the year with our second graders. I teach second grade, and we use Dibbles, just a quick word recognition, but I don't believe we start early. It may be first grade level, but our aide does it, and I've noticed in the past that some of my students do better if I give them the test versus an aide. So that was interesting to me as I read this about giving a child a time test for this technique. And then he discusses contextual reading. And in this, this is a careful record of a child's oral reading, and he says how that is the best window we have into developing reading process, which I would agree. Oftentimes when my students read to me in small group, that is when I start to see the difficulties they may have, and it gives me more of a view of their reading ability. Informal reading inventory is a series of graded passages that is used to assess reading ability, which is also known as IRI. He stresses that we need to make sure that these are grade level and that they're interesting. I thought that was really some good points, as we do what we call an SLO each year for reading and math, and our SLO in second grade is an Ames Web reading passage, but it is words per minute, not necessarily on comprehension. And he discusses the controversy of some do not think that timing a child words per minute is necessarily accurate. He disagrees, and it can still be a great avenue to see where a child is on a reading level, as long as they know that you are going to ask them comprehension. There's a beginning, middle, and end to the story, and it's something interesting and engaging that they would want to read. I thought that was an interesting fact, since the SLO we do in second grade made me want to reevaluate that. And he talks about, you start a student on the IRI level in which the child scored 80% or better in the isolated word recognition. So instead of starting everybody at the pre-primer, starting them 80% or better from their word recognition was important. I thought that was an important fact in knowing where to start a child in a reading passage. And then the spelling part, I feel like this at the end of the chapter, there wasn't a whole lot of meat in this. There was a lot of how to score it, but he talks about spelling and word reading ability are highly correlated across grade levels. Students can often read words that they cannot spell, but there's usually a pattern to that, which I thought was very interesting. I'm personally not the best speller, and when I was younger, I did struggle in reading. But obviously that has changed, and it's actually why I have a passion for wanting to help my students that are struggling readers. But I thought it was interesting to read how the correlation between not being a great speller and reading can sometimes go hand in hand, and oftentimes do, even in the mental processing of that. I thought that was very interesting. And with the spelling, again, it's a list of 10, there's 8 lists with 10 words each, and they build. I thought it was also interesting that child progresses at 50% or higher, which to me 50% seems low, but in this aspect, because of patterns, it's a little different. I thought that was interesting. So this is my reflection on chapter 3. I'm excited to hear yours, Katie. Thanks.